The old estate stood silent on the hill, a relic of wealth long abandoned, its paint peeled like scabbed skin, windows clouded with decades of dirt. At its center, tucked behind iron gates and thorned hedges, lay a once famous garden now. Dead Elias Mercer stood at its rusted gate after 22 years, his gloved fingers resting on the metal latch, unmoved by the memories that stirred in his chest. He didn't come for beauty. He came for closure. He came for revenge. 2 decades ago, Elias had been the gardener's son. The Mercer family had lived in a small cottage on the edge of the property. His father tended the hedges, the lilies, the marbled fountains of house. Windrow, his mother, baked for the staff. And Elias. He'd grown up with Eden Windrow, daughter of the estate, heir to the fortune, and once his closest friend. They were inseparable. She taught him how to read under the willow tree. He built her secret dens of vines and stone. And when they grew older, they grew closer. Love bloomed in whispers, touches, and shared nights beneath the stars. But Eden's father, Julian Windrow, saw none of it. To Julian, Elias was nothing more than dirt on his family's shoe. When he discovered their secret, everything changed. Elias had just turned 17 when Julian dragged him from the greenhouse. Bruised and bleeding, thrown before the estate's board and accused of theft. Jewelry had gone missing. Money, too. The charges were false. Elias knew it.
Ow.
But the Windrow name had power. The word of a Mercer meant nothing. He was arrested. His father was fired. His mother died from the stress. 6 months later, his father drank himself into an early grave. Eden never came. Not to the station, not to the trial, not to the funeral. Girl who had once promised to run away with him vanished. And Elias, full of rage, shame, his betrayal, disappeared into the underbelly of the world. For years he lived nameless, a runaway, then a convict, then a fighter. He grew strong, brutal, shaped by Bacali rings in cold winters. He trained his mind as sharply as his fists, learned landscaping, architecture, engineering, and finance, not to build a future too. Dismantle someone else as he followed the Windrows from afar. Julian grew old, wealthier. Eden married a politician, had a daughter, and became the face of Windrow Foundation, a family-run organization that gave back to the poor. It was a mask, a farce. Elias saw through it. He saw everything. He watched their company bury lawsuits. He traced Eden's husband's offshore accounts, found the shell companies Julian used to launder, campaign money. He spent years collecting data names, photographs, passwords, bank trails he didn't want. Their money, he wanted them stripped of their name. He wanted the empire to rot from within. And now, after 22 years, it began. Elias returned under a false identity, Edward Lysander, a wealthy investor interested in acquiring real estate in the old countryside. He bought the land surrounding the Windrow estate. He opened schools, hospitals, and shelters under the name the Lysander Trust, earning headlines and attention. Then he made contact. A letter arrived at Eden's office, praising her work and offering a meeting to discuss a public partnership for low income housing. Eden accepted. They met at a gala, she in silver silk, ageless and composed. He in black, bearded and calm. She didn't recognize him. He studied her for a moment. She had grown into the role of a perfect matriarch, elegant, passionate, sincere in the way actors were. "Mr. Lysander," she greeted. "Ms. Windrow," he replied. "It's an honor." They shook hands, and the final chapter began. Over the next 6 months, Elias embedded himself in the Windrow Foundation's affairs. He donated, attended galas, held press conferences, and quietly in the background exposed everything. Anonymous whistleblowers surfaced. Emails were leaked. Suddenly, Windrow Foundation's tax records were under audit. Julian's offshore accounts were unmasked. News spread like wildfire, but it wasn't enough. Elias wanted more, so he invited Eden to the estate. To discuss a new project, he said. She arrived alone, wearing the same necklace he once gave her, a small sapphire locket. Now dulled with age, she walked the crumbling path to the dead garden, confused. "Where is everyone?" she asked. "There's No project, Elias replied, appearing from the side. She turned, startled. Her eyes searched his face, and then, recognition. Elias. He nodded once, her lips parted, but you vanished. You left me, he said. I couldn't, my father. You chose silence. She stepped back, breath trembling. Why bring me here? Elias stepped forward. Because this is where it ended, and where it will end again. I didn't know what he planned, she said, voice cracking. I tried to reach you, he stopped everything. He threatened my family. You married into power, Elias replied. You inherited the empire that buried mine. I loved you, she said softly. Then you should have fought. Tears welled in her eyes, and still, Elias felt nothing. He gestured to a bench. Sit, I want you to hear the truth. And so she did. For over an hour, Elias laid it all out. The lies, the bribes, the stolen years. He told her how he survived. What he built, what he destroyed, how the world would see the windrows now, naked, corrupt, hollow at the end. She said nothing, only stared at the garden where they once made wishes. I never stopped wearing this, she said, touching the locket. It's just metal now. She stood quiet. What happens next? That's up to you. He handed her a folder. Everything. Names, numbers, evidence. A map of rot she could no longer ignore. If you want to save what's left of your soul, burn it down yourself. Elias watched. Elias watched from the window. Elias watched from the window as her car disappeared down the road. The Windrow Foundation collapsed in the weeks that followed. Julian was indicted. Eden held a press conference, confessed everything, and stepped down. Her husband filed for divorce. Their family name became a stain in Elias. He never claimed credit. He never gave an interview. He simply vanished again. But this time, he chose peace. He moved to a cottage on the edge of a quiet lake, planted a garden. He built it slowly with patience. Stone by stone, no roses. No vines, only lilies, his mother's favorite, and every spring, he left one envelope at the edge of the Windrow ruins. Inside, a single petal, the note that read, "You buried the wrong man." He never looked back, because revenge wasn't about fire, it was about silence, about letting them crumble under the weight of what they built, and Elias Mercer was done speaking forever.